Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Stephen.
How's it going?
Uh, Fine. I don't know. Just another week. Ever since about a year ago, every week's just another week, really.
I thought you were going to say ever since I was born, just every week's another week.
I can divide my life into different eras, and there's definitely eras that feel that way, and eras that were like every day was like I don't know about you. For me, like high school and early university, it was like every day was like Dawson's Creek or something. You know what I mean? Like
I
it's
don't
so
want to wait.
it's like I don't know. I guess the stability of life now is fun, but back then when like every single thing that happened in my life was like so important, and
Yeah,
I hope that person doesn't hate me, and this other thing happened, and did you hear what those two people did? Like there was some excitement there that I guess now that we're in a pandemic, like just every little bit of social something is like feels so distant, like a distant memory.
yeah. Oh man, I mean, I'm feeling that as a married person with the kid that I live with. I
Oh
I,
yeah.
I can't imagine people who live by themselves how they're dealing with the stresses of, or maybe the pleasures of not going to an office.
Man, well, I have colleagues in New York who are single and rent like tiny, tiny apartments and lived through this pandemic. And like, I actually don't know what the situation exactly is like now, but especially when things first started, or whatever, kind of mid last year when like New York was a bit of an epicenter and people were afraid to go outside and stuff. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. To me, that would have been psychologically quite taxing, I think, just to be in one tiny room all the time alone.
yeah. If I was back in either my apartments in San Francisco or Vancouver again, it would be this year wouldn't have been as enjoyable as it has been.
Hmm. Hmm. I didn't live alone in Vancouver. So, actually, maybe that would have made it like in
Yeah,
that tiny room with another person might have been
yeah.
um, its own set of challenges. But yeah, I don't know. I do feel, I guess, fairly lucky just because we have a pretty spacious place, and we have like we have the kids room in our room, and then kind of like the playroom, and so I can come in here and do my thing, and it feels very uh like when I leave this room at the end of the day, it's like I've left the company, I've left work, and I'm going home, and then the other
Yeah,
rooms are where I hang out with the kids.
yeah.
That said, they love to come in and interrupt, of course, but I don't know, there's enough of a psychological separation that I kind of have my life here in this
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this condo. So
Yeah,
oof.
it works fairly well. I'm probably a little bit more paranoid than I used to be, just because like Montreal is almost at the worst point that it's been in the pandemic right now.
Mm,
And the couple times that I have gone out recently, it's like I've seen almost no one wearing a mask. So to me, it's like I'm more interested in just staying at home and ordering all my groceries and not going outside right now because I feel like it's been so much time. Why throw it away this late,
yeah.
like before I'm about to get a vaccine?
Yeah, yeah, I totally get that. I'm kind of the same. I don't know if I'd say paranoid, but that part especially. Like we're at the end of the road, right? Like, why? Like, imagine getting something now. I'm scheduled for my first shot next week,
Yeah,
and that
next
would
week.
be just like crazy. Yeah.
I'm
So
not scheduled yet, but they're opening it up next week to people my age. So
yeah, sweet. Well,
I'll be able to schedule it as of a week from Friday.
cool. Good luck. I hope you get in there quick.
Yeah,
Uh, from the people I've talked to, in the States, like I think they're well ahead of Canada. Like a lot of my
yeah,
coworkers have already gotten their second dose, and I guess from what I hear, it's a pretty emotional experience for a lot of people.
yeah.
Like they made it this far. Like I know people who were like literally crying getting their second dose. I
I
also know a
mean,
lot of people that got sick, so be careful.
yeah. I mean,
Schedule time off.
I can't imagine having an emotional breakdown over it personally because I don't do that very often. But I feel like the stress is still going to continue for a little bit longer because like none of the vaccines are approved for kids, and I have a kid, so
Yep.
it's like yay, my wife and I will have reduced chances, but we can still go to the grocery store and bring something home to my kid.
Yep, I know. I mean, ditto, right? And uh, I think they're doing trials now um, for like 9-year-olds or something. Which, I
Mm.
mean, you and I are still years away from having a 9-year-old, or like, like my youngest is turning 4, right? Like, I don't want to be paranoid crazy for 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. I mean, I know people who are pregnant right now, right? Like, what how's that going to work for the next while? Like, I understand, of course, that like they always say, little kids seem pretty resilient, and you don't see a lot of, especially like death or like long term stuff. But I don't know. I'm just someone who worries all the time about everything,
Mm.
and so uh, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird place to be. I don't know if I'd be quite emotional, like certainly not crying emotional, but I don't know. I'm weirdly sentimental and passionate about all these dumb little things. So I'll probably feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. Shall we try to? I guess it's too late now that I'm asking the question. I was going to say, should we try to seamlessly transition into our topic?
Trying to think of how to seamlessly transition from a pandemic to talk about
Well,
CRTs. The good
I was
old
gonna, I was
days.
gonna say
Remember the
like,
good old days? Yeah.
well, no, I was gonna say like, how do you think the pandemic would have been different if you didn't have a CRT?
That's a good one. I didn't think of that one. I didn't think of that one. I would be playing all my games with more lag, and I'd be frustrated and sad all the time, man. Oh
Well, I
man.
mean, to be fair, that I felt like that a little bit last night because I tried playing that Mega Man anniversary collection for the PlayStation 2 for the first time on an HDMI and was just blown away at how much input lag there was.
I mean, we've had this conversation 1,000 million times off, offline, off the
Yeah,
podcast. But I'm a big stickler for fighting the input lag fight.
yeah, you were
Uh,
like ready to have a meltdown over Shovel Knight.
oh, that man, Shovel Knight is just the right amount of. That's an episode in itself, I think. Honestly, it's a like difficult to perceive, but just enough to cross my threshold.
so
I would, yeah.
so I mean for me I didn't feel it at all. Like I was pressing the button and I felt like it was perfectly responsive.
So I think Shovel Knight is.
That's
Uh,
whatever issue is there. That's not even a CRT issue.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's a modern game issue with like VSync and stuff that it adds that like tiny frame of lag, and then to me anyway, Shovel Knight, which I mean was a great game otherwise, really. Like there's a lot of things I do like about the game, and having played through it, I did enjoy it. But it's like they make the stages really challenging in parts, right? Like there's stages where everything's dark and then the lightning strikes, and that's the only time you get to see all the little platforms, and you have to kind of jump carefully across those platforms while dodging enemies and stuff. And they make the character just slidey enough that to me, like the combination of like that just slidey enoughness with the level of challenge that they've set up with the stage design, with that 1 or 2 frame lag, especially if you are someone who plays a lot of old games and is used to that like just split second like boom responsiveness, was just enough to just be like so frustrating every time I died because he like slid an extra pixel or whatever, right?
Mm.
And especially because I played Cyber Shadow right after. I mean, Cyber Shadow wasn't like, it's a modern game, it has VSync everything, but like I just felt like, I guess maybe they designed the game around that a little better. Like I just didn't feel it in Cyber Shadow, which is similar to like when you read the postmortem or the design notes on, I think it's Celeste, and they go over all the little things they did to make it feel a little more fair, where like you're allowed to jump even if you've been off the platform for 1 pixel, you can still jump before you fall.
Yeah,
All those little
Coyote
things.
time.
Yeah, like I think they did a little more of that in Cyber Shadow, and it was, they did a better job of masking that just like just enough to mask that feeling of lag, to me anyway. I seem to be more sensitive than every other person on earth, I
Yeah.
guess. Which I mean goes back to how if you do take a modern game and pipe it through an HDMI signal, for me that's like an entirely lost cause.
Yeah, so I mean that's the thing for me that's maybe it's hard to remember what CRTs are like cuz the last time I played on one it was with a PlayStation 3, and it was it was like 6 years ago. So I'm kind of at the point now where I've kind of forgotten.
I've thought many times like I should do that. I should just like stop playing on a CRT, and over time I'll just forget and not
Yeah.
care anymore. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, I mean, I had a conversation not so recently, but with one of our common colleagues,
Or mutuals.
and yeah, and we were talking about some game on the NES or something, and they made a comment basically like I think they were playing it on on an emulator or whatever, and then I was saying like it looks kind of awful and there's all this lag and stuff, and they were saying like you're remembering things wrong, like you're remembering things uh, better than they were, and just chill, man. Trust me, it really was this bad back in the day. And the thing is, like for me, it's not like this era shift or whatever never happened, right? Like I've always had a CRT by my bed with my Nintendo setup. Like I'm not misremembering, right? It's like telling you misremember like your parents or something. Like, well, they're still alive. I'm still talking to them, right? Like that never happened. So uh, I've never lost that sensitivity, I guess, if that makes sense. Which is
Yeah.
not some weird, I don't know, boast or something. It's just I'm just used to that split second responsiveness. So
Yeah, I mean when you're used to PlayStation 2 era and up
yeah.
games, and like there's just when you're using an HDMI signal, there's lag, and like every game since then has been built kind of with that in mind. Like you,
Hmm.
Dark Souls or Bloodborne or whatever, like it's not designed for instantaneous reactions when you press the button. So it's just when
Hmm.
you do go back to playing like Mega Man 3 and it's emulated, it feels good enough. Like you kind of learn to just cope with having to predict when things are happening and press the button that slight little bit early.
I'm biting my lip, but yes, I get it. I totally
But
get it.
but it's like I remember at one point I went to your place and played on a Nintendo, and it was the first time I'd played on an actual Nintendo in probably 4 years or so.
Mm.
And I remember struggling trying to play the game. Like the timing felt off. And I wish I could remember what game it was. I remember it was one where we had to like climb up ladders. It was almost like the level looked kind of Donkey Kong-ish, I think, and you had to like jump over a gap and like inflate a balloon or something. I don't know. But
Mm. Okay. Yep.
at least that's what my memory tells me it was. But it was like just timing that jump. I just couldn't do it, and it felt so stupid to me.
So you can imagine how I feel because I think we're going like there's like a border here, and you're crossing it one way, and I'm crossing it the other way, and
Yeah,
why I always have this frustration. Which I mean, we are probably a dying breed, or certainly a dying breed, because I mean things have just moved on, so it's hard to like justify trying to go back to my way, if you will. But
yeah,
I don't know. I just think it's it's I don't know how to explain it. To me, it's just better. It's like more pure, which sounds ridiculous, but like just imagine like I mean, I know you don't give a shit about sports, but like if you had like some like target practice, like some sports where biathlon or something, they use the gun and they shoot the target or something, and like just at some point in time, all the manufacturers for that gun they just like introduced like a minor delay, and everyone had to like play their sport slightly differently. Like it's just weird to me, kind of. You know what I mean? Like your interface to the ability to play the game is now permanently different,
yeah,
and all you can do is kind of shrug and say and get used to it. But like before, to me, like having zero input lag at all, I mean, yes, you can get used to having input lag, but having totally zero input lag seems inherently better.
yeah.
um
Well,
yeah, I don't.
it's like I was watching a video. Like I tried to play the Mega Man collection from PlayStation 2,
Mhm.
and I've already, I think I'd mentioned in one of the previous podcasts that I had just played Mega Man 4, 5, and 6 earlier this year. So I was like, all right, ready to move on to 7.
Mhm.
And 7 was where they switched to the Super Nintendo, so that it was kind of different tech. And I don't have the original Super Nintendo copy around. I have the PlayStation 2 copy.
Hmm.
And I guess whatever they did in that, they changed the resolution from 240p, like progressive scan, to 480i interlaced.
Hmm.
And their process for doing that doubled the amount of input lag.
Internal to the game, or is
Yeah.
the PlayStation unable to? I mean, yeah, that's. I would find that
There's
intolerable.
for yeah, so it's like I'm playing it, I'm like, wow, this input lag is terrible. It's like there's a very noticeable, I press the jump button, I let go, and then I jump.
Yep.
And I was like, this is awful. And so I started looking into it because I know they've re-released all the Mega Man games as a collection for modern consoles as well.
Hmm.
Because, PlayStation 2 is not modern anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm looking into it because I'm thinking, all right, well, I kind of like to be able to play this game. I know they did a good job with DuckTales porting that. They probably did a good job with this too. But it turns out they've doubled the input lag again from the PlayStation 2 to the modern console. So if you're playing on a PlayStation 4 and you play Mega Man X1, you're going to
Hmm.
experience 8 frames of lag.
That is intense. That would be beyond it. That's not even like sometimes I pop in a game when I know, like just on like on an emulator or something, and just to test it out. But I don't even know if I could stand testing it out if it had
Yeah.
that much input lag.
Well, so I mean, that's the thing is I just like looked at them like, okay, well, if not enjoying it on the PlayStation 2, there's no point in buying the new version because it's going to be like twice as bad.
Yeah, that's awful. I mean, this is a huge issue for me. I understand modern games are like designed for it, but even the games that are designed for it, I'm at least slightly conscious of it. Like I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2, what was it, last year or whatever. And I mean, it's very much a game that is designed for it, just the way it moves and just everything, right? And so is any modern game like that. But I don't know. I can just kind of feel it, and I think it's just because I play so much older games. It's like I'll spend like 30 minutes playing some whatever, right? Like some game that requires like really precise inputs, and then pop over into Red Dead Redemption 2, and it just feels like I'm swimming through molasses a little bit.
Mm.
And that's really every game. I'm not picking on them particularly, and I think actually they did a very good job of, as you said, designing around it. It's just very obvious if you're kind of bouncing back and forth, and that's why I think like a lot of these modern, like there's a lot of re-releases of older games or like these like Mega Man Collection or that kind of thing. Um, I don't know. It's like they have to take special care to do it right, or it just comes out really poorly, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of these companies just slap them together and release everything together, and so it has made me very hesitant to buy those collections generally. Like I have to at least first look into it and see if other people are complaining about the lag or if there's like a demo of some sort tested, just because I just really don't trust them at all.
Mm. So it's I don't know. It's weird because some of that is like I haven't played Red Dead, but
Mhm.
I have the impression that it's a little bit like the old Prince of Persia game where they designed a lot of it to have like this nice fluid animation, and you don't get to change your action. You don't get to animation cancel.
I guess to some extent, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like GTA or any of those games too. There's going to be parts where that's not quite the case. Like you can go into like slow mo, what are they like bullet time mode kind of, and
Yeah.
like pick all your targets, and it kind of requires more precise ish uh, control at that point. And I think at that point, that's about as good as you're going to get for like more like responsive control by design. But yeah, the rest of the game, just normally like running around and punching people and whatever, is definitely leaning towards more of a fluid animation type of thing for sure.
So are you? I know you play a lot of Smash Bros. Or
I was
have recently.
I was
It,
going to bring up Smash Bros. Actually.
that that's still a community that's largely on the CRT bandwagon, right?
Well, it has to be. I mean, if you look into the way the pros play, there's so many like frame perfect move sequences and frame perfect whatever like button combinations that result in the character moving in a certain way to have them be in a certain place at a certain time. And with any leg, that's just out the window, right? It's just inconceivable that you could play at that high level without the rawest form of like zero lag input, output, whatever. And so it's funny because if you look into like here in 2021, that community, acquisition of CRTs is actually a big thing they struggle with now, because as CRTs get scarcer and scarcer, there's simply no replacement, right? Um, I
I
mean,
find it sad. Like every now and then I'll walk down the road and I'll see someone's thrown out a CRT, and
yep,
and it's just like I remember there was a time when you would see them on the road and there would be like a sign on it that says "Still works, take me" or something,
hmm,
because it's like, the person upgraded their TV, but the TV works. It's just huge and they have no space for it anymore.
yep, yep,
But now it's like a lot of the time when I see those, it's like people vandalize them.
yep,
There'll be
yep.
like graffiti or something on it, and it's just like it
No,
hurts. It hurts.
I'm actually part of a Facebook group for like CRT hunting, if you will, and it's like people who like take pictures of CRTs they see by the side of the road and post them, and they're like, this was at the corner of Third and Fifth, get it quick, and all this stuff. And a lot of it is like, it's not like, one actually showed up at the shop. Wow, let's go get it, guys. It's almost like, let's rescue these things because they're going to get rained on. They're going to get like smashed and kicked and vandalized and whatever. And oftentimes it is a case of like, look, I found this TV. Someone, it looks like it's in bad shape, but get it before it gets worse, kind of things, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I get, especially like if you're not into games, like if you're just into film or something, like CRTs are so, like infinitely inferior to like a modern TV, which is lighter and thinner and nicer and everything. But like for this one use case specifically, these older games, it's so, I don't know. It's like, for me anyway, such a part of my kind of growing up, and it's a hobby I still like. So to see that just vanish is really sad. Um, I do like we're kind of starting to see more. It seems like a big indie effort, but like in terms of like upscalers and stuff, there seems to be a lot of breakthroughs recently that I'm excited about, and looking forward to. I don't know if you follow any of that at all.
Not really. Um, I mean, I'm a very cheap person, so I tend to try to, when I'm researching stuff, look for like what's the cheapest option. Does it have bad reviews? And then I just like keep upping the amount of money until I find something that's like got few enough bad reviews that I can live with it.
It's funny. I'm like that for. It depends. I don't know if I'd say most things. Like I'm selective, I guess. Where if something's really important to me, I'm totally not like that at all. But then if it's not super important to me, that's kind of the approach I take. And like where, especially these like whatever classic games, is kind of my main hobby in my life. Especially recently, I've been less hesitant to just throw money at it to make it perfect. Reasonable amount of like research instead of just buying the most expensive thing. But as far as upscalers recently, they have come down in price and gone up in quality, which is fantastic. So I remember about 5 years ago, was it five? I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, I bought a Framemeister. Did I ever show you that thing?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, it's an upscaler, and it was the best at the time, and everyone loved it. And it introduced about one frame of lag, which was too much for me, of course. And I just couldn't. Like most people on the internet were like so excited about this. But
Yep.
anyway, effectively you could plug in your red, yellow, white into this box, and then it
Yep.
output a DVD signal, an HDMI signal, and you had pretty close to like a high fidelity whatever experience playing on like a modern TV, and it had a few little options to like introduce scan lines and change the colors a little bit. Um, I To me it was like, I don't know. It had, I mean, I had my CRT in the room with me. Like I would always just play with that, of course. So the only way I would ever switch over is if it was perfect. So it just wasn't good enough, and it always frustrated me. But recently, there's a couple options out there. There's the Retrotink. I don't even know how you're really supposed to say that, but that's the one I have right now. And then there's this other one called OSSC, which is open source scan converter, I believe. Um, that second one is like this fairly hefty box with like a bunch of like exposed electronics. Like it looks really hackery. It looks really kind of fun to play with actually, but it's a little more expensive. Um, but and they're coming out with a pro version of it soon. So I was kind of holding out to buy the pro version of that one.
Yeah.
But I did buy the Retrotink, which I don't remember how much it was. I don't think it was like, it's not like $5 or anything. It's probably like 80. I can't remember it all. I shouldn't guess. I don't know. It wasn't too much. And it effectively, like, it's very, very close to what I want, actually. Very, very close. Definitely sub frame delay. So 0 delay, right? And pretty good video signal, pretty good everything. As far as delay goes, it's actually an excellent option, and I was very happy with it. But there's just something that's just a little off for me still. I don't know. I maybe I'm being crazy perfectionist about this, but I see them getting so close. It's weird because if you've ever lined up a CRT against a modern TV, and like pipe the same signal through both of them, so like the same game or whatever, right? It's just, I don't know, CRT is like, the contrast is beautiful, and these old games, just maybe it's just because that's what I'm used to, like how it looks on a CRT with all the little scan lines and distortion at the edges and all that stuff.
Well, I mean, I've been taking a little bit more note of that recently. There's a Twitter account at CRT Pixels.
Did you send that to me, or did we find it independently? Because I think I have the same one where they compare the
I know I have sent it to you. I don't know if you found it independently as well.
Okay, well, I definitely like follow that as well.
But it's like it's amazing when you look at some of the stuff, because I mean, like I said, I haven't played a non-emulated NES, I think, since like 2010. So it's weird when, like, I'm now so used to the modern pixel look where everything is like super chunky.
Yep.
And your brain has a way of just accepting that that's the way it is. But then when you start looking at these things, it's like, I've never enjoyed scanline filters in emulators. Like, to me, it's just like adding a dark line on top of stuff, and it's like it feels wrong. It doesn't feel like it solves the problem. Like, the pixels are still chunky, but now they've just got a weird dark line over them.
So,
but looking at this Twitter account, it's like eye-opening when you see like how some of this stuff looked then versus now, when it's like, because it's someone who's taking photos of their CRT, and you get to actually see how stuff blends together.
Yeah, well, again, that's me. I look at that every day because I have the CRTs, right? And then I'm that guy too, where I'm seeing that every day with like different, like, you can easily load an emulator of some game and play the game beside it and be like, wow, they look totally different. I get what you're saying with the scanline emulation, but like, for me, I find so many people are, I think yourself included, which is fine, but like, so many people with like pixelated games, like if you play, I don't know, well, I mean, it was the same with Cyber Shadow, I think, but like, you're playing a game on an emulator and no one really cares about this. They're happy to just have the raw image shown on the screen. And so it's like the extremely blocky characters.
Yeah.
And that's fine, I guess. But to me, like, it never looked that way. Like, that's not how it looked. It was always blurry, and it kind of, like, the Twitter account you're talking about, I think demonstrates that perfectly, where it's like, some of these older games, yeah, we all remember them as being super blocky, and like, you know, like on The Simpsons, when Bart would play a video game, it would be like super blocky. Like, everyone knew that was what video games were like. They're just these blocky things. But like, I think people exaggerate that a bit in their mind, or they just don't mind it. Like, I like pixel art too, right? Like, you go on the pixel art subreddit, and I'm not asking them to go and blur their images or anything crazy. But if you are trying to like capture that classic look of that game as much as possible, you're not doing it. And again, that's fine, but
it's hard with filters and stuff, because I don't know, like, every TV was different, and like everyone's distance away from the TV was different and stuff. So your perception of how blurry it should be, or how much like chromatic aberration and stuff there should be, is different.
And also, people even back then, a lot of the time, would like, I mean, like when S-Video came out, that was a big deal because it's so much nicer and cleaner. And so you had the people that actually had some S-Video converter or something, and they were playing things through S-Video. And for them, that their memory of playing games at the time, you know, looks different. It looks nicer. It looks kind of clearer, more crisper
Yeah.
than a lot of people, which I get. But like, I think you could generalize on a standard somewhat, right? Like most people didn't have that. Most people did play with blurry televisions of X level of quality at X distance to some
Yeah.
extent, right? And like to what you're kind of to the point you made that modern games are more designed around this lag a little bit. I think back then, like when people made the artwork for games, like the visuals for the game, they made it for that kind of that technology in mind, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess part of it for me is just trying to, like, I mean, when the people created these games, that's what they created it for that experience. And so that to me is kind of the real, like, not getting too artsy snobby or whatever. Like that's just like the intended experience. So I just want to recapture that as closely as possible. I feel like if I was like a game developer back in the day and spent all this time trying to make this perfect game as much as possible, and then nowadays when people play it, they like stretch it into this awkward aspect ratio on the screen, and they like it doesn't look like it should. I would be quite upset, I think.
Well, it felt weird for me because I was doing. I mean, going back to the Twitter thing that I was just talking about, you can see side by side. There's a huge difference between the images. Like, there's a
Mm-hmm.
Batman one where you look at it, and on a HDMI like
Signal.
raw pixel signal,
Mm-hmm.
it's these distinct blocks that have like dithered pixels, like a little checkerboard pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the CRT thing, and that checkerboard pattern's just not there at all. Like, you
Yeah.
don't see it. It blends together, and it looks like this nice, soft, shaded thing. And recently, I was making pixel art, right,
Yeah.
for an authentic NES, but I don't have a CRT, so it's just weird how like I don't have an exact knowledge of what this thing looks like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because sometimes like it can distort and not look at all like what you would think it would look like, which I mean you're
Yeah,
probably well familiar with, but like something that you would draw out as like a circle or like maybe like a face that's just small enough that like certain features of the face are represented basically by like a single pixel, which is kind of just a shaded point in the face or whatever. And you put it on a CRT and it's like that pixel either fades out of existence or like is way more prominent than it should be or something, like just little things
yeah,
like that. Yeah. Which I mean, that's what I mean though. Like the people who designed the games back in the day would have been dealing with that and designed around it. And now that's just all out the window. And so, yeah,
yeah. Someday I should get a CRT so that I can see what that pixel art looked like that I made.
I'll send you some pictures. Ooh, but yeah, it's I don't know. It's important for me, I guess, and it's been a fun journey. Like there's been frustrations, but I've enjoyed generally trying to make it work. Um, One thing I'll say, they just came out with the Retrotink Pro, I guess I think is what they call it, which is like the next generation of the one I do own. And the thing with the one I do own, going back to the scanline emulation thing, it actually has a scanline option. And what it does is if you turn it on, it blacks out every second line,
Hmm.
which most emulators and stuff, like that seems to be the default way to do scan lines. But if you look at like the real signal, which I mean, we'll just look at the CRT Twitter account, like maybe the actual television was only broadcasting a signal on every second line or whatever, but like, or like physically distance wise, but um, probably because of the bleed from pixel to pixel where it just, you don't get this perception that every second line is pitch black.
Well, no, it's like, I mean, it's little tiny things that are lighting up, and there's a glass
Yeah, there's
screen,
just
right?
a,
Like there's going
yeah,
to be color bleed
physical,
between them,
yeah,
and
and go,
it's like where those scan lines are. Like, it's different from TV to TV.
mm-hmm,
I'm looking at somewhere it's like tall pixels and somewhere it's wide pixels and whatnot,
yep,
depending on the region. But where it's like the bright colors versus the dark colors, it's like the dark colors, there's less light, so it looks like a thicker scan line, but the white colors bleed together more, and it's a thinner scan line look.
yep. The thing is, with an emulator that's powerful enough or whatever, you could have some sort of filter set that accounts for that, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, uh, What I'm actually satisfied with, it might not be for everyone, it might not be for you. Look at, for example, even like SNES, ZSNES has this. Probably most
Mm,
emulators nowadays do, but like it has partial scan lines, or I don't know what they call them exactly, but it has effectively
yeah,
scan lines. But then you can set the amount of darkening. So I always
yeah.
turned on 25% scan lines, and it's like it would darken it 25% versus what the normal color would have been. And to me, it looks great. It looks very much like the old, like on a classic CRT to me. Certainly enough that I'm happy to set it and be done with it and not worry about it anymore. No scan lines looks a little off. Pitch black line, I hate. Um, and so on the older Retrotink, the one I have, you have no option. You have no scan lines, or you have pitch black every second line. But the new one, they don't have it now. But I pinged the guy and I just asked, like, are you capable? Are you thinking about it? And I guess they have the ability to. So he was basically like, stay tuned. So I will actually probably pick that up if they implement that, because that was the
Hmm.
last piece of the puzzle for me.
There you go.
There you go.
Uh, so I mean, your group that looks for all the CRTs off the side of the road, is there like particular TVs where people are like, no, don't bother with that one, it's garbage, and other ones where they're like, oh my god, this is a rare find, hop on it?
There's definitely CRTs people call out for their quality. I mean, Sony was always famous. I mean, I think it's kind of one of the things that made Sony famous, actually, was the quality of their, excuse me, their televisions back in the CRT days. But like the original Trinitrons were really good. Their Vega series was really good. Their series of broadcasting televisions, so like the PVMs, I forget the other one, DVM or something. I actually have some of them. They're extremely expensive, and they're basically the highest quality CRT known to man, humans. These things are like ridiculously expensive. Like a good one that is whatever kind of like 25-inch screen size is like $1,000 or something.
Mm.
And they were mostly used by like television stations and stuff. So now the best way to get them is when you have like a TV station that's liquidating all its old junk out of its back storage or something. I don't think I've ever seen one of those by the side of the road. They don't tend to just get put on the side of the road. I
The
actually picked
people that
mine.
still have them probably know that they're a good
Yeah,
enough quality not to do that.
exactly. Or like people who have them know that they can sell them, right? I got mine actually from some guy who, I forget what his job was. He was like a reporter or something, and so he had connections at this TV station, and then they got rid of theirs, and he gave me his like secondary model he didn't need, or he like got a few of each model, and then he gave me one and sold the rest and kept the best one for himself. So I actually have two of them, which I don't know what I could sell them for. Probably a good bit, but they definitely are great. The thing is, the ones I have are quite small. I have like I forget actually 13-inch, I think. And so I don't generally use them because I have a bigger CRT that I like. Um, but you can certainly split it up by company too. Like back then in like the 80s, I mean Samsung, for example, nowadays I know they're like the gods of TVs with LG or whatever. But back then they're kind of a lesser brand in the CRT era. So like Samsung wasn't great, Zenith wasn't great. I mean, really, I think nowadays people will take anything, but probably Sony are the ones people really stick out for. They're certainly the ones I've had the most success with. There's Toshiba models also that I really like.
The
Um,
the the Zenith TV is what I grew up with, and to me that's got a nostalgia all on its own because it was like this big wooden cabinet that was like one part television, one part like bookshelf because it's like you could totally just put stuff on
yes.
the top of it.
That's you're getting into why I actually use my Vega TV instead of the PVM is because it's clearly worse, but it's also clearly what I remember, right? Which again, I'm sure game makers at the time, normal households didn't have PVMs; they had these crappier ones, and so they made the games with that in mind. And so I don't feel like it feels fine to use it. I don't feel like I'm shortchanging myself.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a Zenith, however you want to say it, is fine too. I didn't have that. I looked down on that brand growing up because I was a snob. So yeah, it's funny. I remember when
I
go
sorry,
ahead.
go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm trying to remember when they stopped making CRTs, like totally none at all in the whole entire world.
Well, well, that's what I was just about to say. Is like I wonder if this is going to end up being like Polaroid, where in another few years people are going to be like, "This was amazing. Why did we give this up? We need to start manufacturing it again." Because it's like
Yeah.
there was a company called Impossible Project which decided to start rekindling the instant camera
Mhm.
and making film, but the formula for the film had been lost, so they had to just like invent it all over again.
Oh man. Yeah, I think I've actually heard people, there's like kind of some calls for that, but I think with CRTs, there's probably a lot more hurdles to overcome. I mean, it's like, especially to get like a good quality CRT, the manufacturing process, like the nature of the factory you would need to set up,
Yeah,
where it's obsolete technology, like you'd have to have like a huge company invest a lot of money to do it really well. And
yeah,
it's not profitable and it's bad for the environment. It's just one of those
yeah.
things, right? Which really sucks. Plus, I mean, they'd never do it just for like those retro gamers or whatever.
No,
Um,
and that's the thing. I don't think too many people who currently are watching like 4K movies and stuff care about having that ported to a CRT.
yeah, not too much, right? Um, it's, I mean, it's inevitable that there's going to be a world where there's no CRTs, and so I've very much warmed up to the like getting like the perfect upscaler. Um, Especially like, I mean, look at people like you or me as well increasingly, but like where we move a lot or we just want to have very few things in the house, instead of having this huge CRT beside your nicer TV or your modern TV, what if you could have this little tiny thing that you just hook up all your, if you have retro game systems or whatever, you just hook them up to the modern TV and you're done and you don't worry about it, right? Like, even if purists like me continue to be pretty kind of sad, bummed that CRTs are going away, I think having that option is fantastic, and so that's something I'm actually really excited about. Um, if this pandemic ever ends or whatever, like I would happily show you the Retrotink stuff. It's actually really cool. I'm looking forward to the if they do add the scanline stuff to the Pro version. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things, lost art.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, it was largely moving. I saw someone made a tweet that I responded to actually that said like the average amount of homes that people live in is something like 11 over the course of their life.
I'm at like, well, probably both
Yeah,
of
yeah,
us are
yeah,
like
yeah.
30 or something.
So someone tweeted saying they say an average person lives in 11 homes in their lifetime, and I'm currently at, depending on how you look at it, either like 13 or 16,
Yeah.
if you want to count like the different rooms in the dorm I lived in. Or
Yeah. I mean, I think when trying to fall asleep one night, I counted them for myself, and it was some crazy number. I mean, we move ridiculously. Like, even since we've come to the States, I've lived in, I think I'm on place number 6 in 7 years as someone with 2 kids and a job that hasn't changed or has
yeah,
changed
yeah,
once, I guess. I don't know.
yeah. But both the job and apartment that I have right now is the longest I've ever been sta- stationary.
Since like
Uh,
your parents' house or one of your
so
parents' houses.
yeah, yeah.
How long
Yeah,
has it
and it's
been?
like I think I've been in the apartment for 4 years
Ooh,
and at the job for two.
wow. That's funny that 2 is your max job. I've been switching it up every 4 or 5 years for job. We were in when we had moved into our Bothell, Washington house. We were there for 3.5 years, and that was, I think, by far the longest for us.
Well, it's like I worked in the film industry, and
Yeah,
my wife's an animator too. So it's like it's a
contract.
animation is an industry that is not known for hiring people long term. So
Hmm.
when you have two people there, it's like I've had options where I could have stayed put longer, and my wife's had options where she could have stayed put longer. But the other person had an offer come up that we decided to jump on. So it's like we just switched stuff up. And
Yep.
the people who are just like have stayed in their hometown their whole lives, it's just inconceivable to me.
Yeah. uh, I mean, I was destined. I think both of us were destined to leave our small hometowns. But like even people who grew up in like, I don't know, Toronto or Vancouver or something, and they've
Or
never
New
lived
York or
anywhere else.
something.
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
never lived anywhere else. Like again, I'm not looking down on those people at all, totally zero. But just for me personally, like I think I've always like traveling somewhere for a week and taking pictures of yourself in front of all the pretty buildings or whatever is very different than like living somewhere else. And so I feel quite happy to have moved around
Yeah.
and lived in all these different places. Certainly, I've had a couple CRTs fall victim to the whole "I'm moving, I need to get rid of this"
Yeah.
situation, which is unfortunate.
But that's definitely what it was for me. Is like when I moved from Toronto to Australia, I was like, okay, I can't
Bring a
take
CRT.
everything with me. I can't afford a larger storage unit than I'm going to rent. I got to get rid of stuff. So I got rid of the CRTs, got rid of the NES, PlayStation One, I think, Super NES, um, and like all the games and cables that went with it. And it's kind of a weird thing. Like if you want to plug a Nintendo and a Super Nintendo and like a Genesis and a PlayStation 1 all into a TV, it's like you've got so many cables that you have to wrangle to make that happen. And
Yep. The biggest, to me, the challenge, like it's not the end of the world to have a setup that effectively hides cables, I guess. It can be difficult depending what you have, but if you like specifically hunt down furniture that maybe has like some sort of back hidden
yeah.
compartment or something, and you get all the like cable clips, it's okay. Problem again for me, two things. First of all, um, I have enough systems that if I go all out and set them all out, like whatever system is farthest from the TV, you're gonna have to like have some sort of extender or something. Like I can't have everything proximate to where the cables need to go. It's
Yeah.
just impossible. It is just impossible. And trying to have that situation and like effectively hide the cables, like sometimes I can run the cable kind of in front of everything else and it'll reach. And so I do that, or I don't do that, but I'll leave it unplugged and rolled up. But whenever I want to play that system, that's what I do. And so depending on what stage of use everything's in, it's like the cable situation is different.
That's
Um,
also a thing where, like, for me, it's like I'm cheap, and so I don't get things with automatic switching in it. I get stuff where there's a physical switch that I have to use to toggle between the different systems, and
Yep, I have those. You have like a few of them run through each other, and you need to have
yeah,
like graph paper, like the combination that works for whatever
yeah.
system specifically, or you label it. Yeah.
I
Um,
mean, I've honestly got that even right now just at my computer because I have three monitors, um, and those are all just kind of stationary. But then in one of the monitors, I have the decision between whether it's receiving a signal from my computer or if it's receiving stuff from a game console.
hmm.
And uh, like last week, when I was trying to figure out my PlayStation 2 and whether that worked, I had my PlayStation 3, my PlayStation 2, 3, and 5 all plugged into this thing. And so it's like I have to manually switch what they're being plugged into because I've actually got them plugged into a capture card on my computer. And
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
like some sort of copyright signal or something where it's like you can't do that directly.
Hmm.
It has to be plugged into a signal splitter first. So that's this. The consoles go into a signal splitter, which go into my computer, and then that outputs something. Uh, I I I guess I've got a toggle so that I can get a signal directly from that to my monitor or from my computer to my monitor. So then I have like a physical switch on that as well. So it's like there's two spots that I have to make a switch if I want to play something on my computer.
Are they both within reach? Like that's the challenge to me with the older consoles, having them set up everywhere. Is like whenever I want
One
to set up a
one's
console, I have to go press all these buttons and like yank these cables around. Like it's not like I could just reach over and do
yeah.
it. Yeah.
one's in reach from at my chair and one's not in reach from at my chair. So it's like if I'm going between my computer and the PlayStation, I only have to toggle the one that's
Mm,
within reach. But if I'm going from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 5, I have to go to the one that's not in reach.
gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, you might remember the game room I had a long time ago where everything was set up. I mean, recently I've been, I don't know, I just like a cleaner setup. So I'll usually have like one or two systems, and then if I want to play something, I'll just like literally put that system away and then pull out a different system.
Yeah.
It works a lot better for me, especially like back in the day when I had like the Sega Master System and the Sega Genesis set up beside each other, and it's like they just gathered dust, right? How often do I play them?
Yeah.
Occasionally, just for fun, but like they can basically stay in a drawer somewhere. It's not really a big deal. So I've basically solved my cable problem that way for the most part.
Right. Yeah. I've got an Atari hooked up to my TV, and that's kind of the same way. That's actually
A
using
real
like the
one?
old. No, it's one of
I was gonna
the
say,
reissue things,
yeah, those are a
but
challenge to hook up. Those old ones.
it's still using that old style connection, like not even the yellow, white, and red, but like there's like a needle and something you have to screw.
Wow.
Uh, so it's fun playing that because like there's totally these weird little signal glitches and stuff that are happening as a result of
Yeah.
that connection type.
I love that that's fun. I mean, if you look, if you tried to get, like, I'm talking about the fidelity of recreating the experience or whatever. If you tried to like push for that for Atari, I mean, man, I don't know. Like, I wasn't there in the '70s or whatever, but to me, every single Atari setup I've looked at just looks terrible. Like when like the actual captured uh, uh, video
Yeah,
signal or whatever,
yeah,
you'd probably have to like introduce something distortion or something significant
yeah.
amount of like fuzz or something.
That's the fun thing is because I think the system itself has the yellow, white, and
Hmm.
red connection, but my TV doesn't because it's too modern.
But it has the
But
cable
it has the cable
coax.
input because of course people are going to buy cable,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's funny.
So, but it's fun that that little conversion box that goes from the downgrades, I guess, from the three to the one is it introduces just enough garbage into it that it's actually kind of fun to play that, even though it's such terrible games.
Yeah. That's funny. That's funny. Just while we're talking about cables, it reminded me of something. My CRT actually, um, I the sound started to fail weirdly. I don't really know what's going on actually, but the when I turn the TV on, there's this weird like fuzz coming out of the speaker at a pretty
Yeah,
consistent frequency too. It's like and it's like incredibly annoying. Like if you blast the volume, you can maybe drown it out. And it's a consistent volume, so it's definitely coming out of the speaker, but it sounds like some sort of electrical interference or something. I just pretend to be an electrical engineer, so I don't actually know. But the 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 thing is, if you mute the TV or if you put the volume all the way down, um, like there must be something in the TV that says, okay, the speaker doesn't need to be active. I'm just going to literally shut it off, and so
yeah,
that sound goes away. If you have any volume at all on, it itself is a consistent volume. So like if you blast it, you still get the same volume of. If it's like 1 bar of volume, it's still that same level of volume for the distorted noise that comes out of it. So anyway, I'm able to mute it and get rid of the noise. And so I thought, all right, well, this is okay. I'll just buy a speaker that takes the red and white input and plug
yeah.
like the old system directly into that instead. And so I bought this speaker, which is decent. And I was like looking forward to it arriving. When it arrived, it doesn't have like it advertised itself as like having RCA input. Um,
Right,
and when it came, it doesn't have that. It takes like what's that thing? Just like the normal mic input, but it comes with a little converter thing that converts to that from the red and white.
right.
And so it's
I'm
gonna
betting that does the same thing.
yes, but it's a male connector. And so I
Right,
have two like I can, it's two male connectors. But since I have from when I had all the systems set up, I have the box to convert them. Like it takes input and then you select where whatever input
right.
you want to go to the output. I don't have a direct converter. I could buy one, I guess, but I had that box, and so I have the Super Nintendo right now, the video signal goes directly to the TV. The audio signal goes into a switch box, and it's the only input connected to it. And then the output of that goes to this external speaker, and it's this mess of wires everywhere. But it works. It works. It works wonderfully. So I am satisfied with it for now.
Yeah, it's a whole fun other world when you start getting into audio and stuff too, because
Yeah.
there's like, I mean, my setup for recording on my computer is weird because I've got like headphones that are connected via USB, but then I've also got an external sound card that I use for like my microphone and if I were to plug my guitar or anything in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I've got a separate USB connection to that I've got like these big, huge cables plugged into. But in the past, I've not necessarily been recording with like a professional mic, so then I've had to get like adapters for the microphones. Like, so I've done some streaming with my kid, and so my setup is I've got a video capture card that's attached to my computer. I can't like move that around. It's not external. It's in my tower. So I run like a 25-foot HDMI cable from that to the little signal splitter that I was telling you about earlier. And so then I've got one signal going to my computer, one signal going to the TV. And then we've got into my USB sound card, my microphone. So I've got like a 30-foot long cable that goes from that out into the living room. And then that has a splitter so that I can have a lapel mic on my kid and a lapel mic on myself at the same time.
Sounds like you're the one with the cable nightmare.
and then like depending on what we're doing, it's like there have been times where I've wanted to play a computer game out there too. So then I like have to change the HDMI cable so that it's like outputting the signal from my computer. But then I've also got like a super long USB cable so that we can have our controller from my computer. Because it's like I'd rather have this long cable stretching across the apartment temporarily than like unplug my computer and relocate that and stuff.
No, that makes total sense. I mean, I've basically done the same thing, not in my current apartment, but I've had that setup situation. Always fun.
It's like every now and then I'll go to these like home theater PC forums or whatever, and people will show off these elaborate setups they've got where they've got everything looking wireless, like the cables go into their walls and then into their TV from there and stuff. And it's just like, I can't imagine ever having that setup, because to me, then it like completely eliminates your option to like have a computer in one room. And I don't know. It's like, this is for the people who are watching movies, not who are playing video games.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think for me too, like I was looking into that when we had the house in Bothell, and like it's just enough of a hassle. I didn't want to do anything like that. And then like plus moving all the time. Like there's a certain amount of effort I'm willing to put into my setup, knowing that it's inevitably going to be temporary.
Yeah.
And so that's another place where I start to tolerate wires everywhere. Problem is I've been doing it my whole life, so I feel like if I ever find some sort of permanent settlement or something, like what I'm still probably like, that's what I know now. So I don't know if I go all the way and like put some extra effort into cable hiding beyond what I've done.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's about a wrap for a day.
We didn't even talk about disc rot.
Disc. Oh man. Well, you know what? To be fair, that's like a session all on its own.
Indeed, we talk about collecting, which is indeed its own session.
Yeah. Let's maybe that'll be our focus next time, is the preservation of games.
Sounds good. All right, man. Well, time for me to go back to bed.
All right, time for me to get breakfast.
Cool. All right. Till next time.